Late in the afternoon at a crowded mall, two homeless kids stood outside a toy store, their eyes locked on a shiny red bicycle. Hungry and shivering, they turned to leave until a wallet stuffed with cash fell at their feet. One choice could end their hunger. The other would save their conscience. They did the right thing, only to be accused of theft. And just when hope began to fade, a stranger stepped forward with a decision that would change everything. Before we continue, tell us what time it is and where you're watching from, and subscribe because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The late afternoon sun filtered through the glass ceiling of Riverside Mall, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. It was the kind of place where everything gleamed: the store windows, the brass railings, even the shoes of the people who walked through it. Outside, the winter wind rattled the bare tree branches, but inside it was warm, bright, and insulated from the world's harshness. Eli Carter pressed his face against the glass window of a toy store, his breath fogging up the surface. His twin brother Noah stood beside him, hands shoved deep into the pockets of a jacket 2 sizes too big. They both wore clothes that had seen better days: jeans with frayed hems, sneakers held together with duct tape, and that particular kind of weariness that settles into children who've had to grow up too fast. "Look at that one," Eli whispered, pointing at a red bicycle with chrome handlebars. "That's the one I'd pick." Noah nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's a good one." They didn't talk about how they'd never owned something like that. They just looked. That was enough. Inside Eli's mind, a familiar thought circled. If we're quiet and don't bother anyone, maybe we can stay warm for another hour. His stomach rumbled. They'd eaten half a sandwich they found behind a deli that morning. Breakfast felt like a long time ago. A man in a dark blue uniform appeared at the edge of Eli's vision. The security guard, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, walked toward them with purpose. Eli felt his heart sink. They'd been noticed. "Hey," the guard said sharply. "You two, what are you doing here?" Eli straightened up. "Just looking, sir. We're not causing any trouble." The guard's eyes swept over them, taking in the dirty clothes, the hollow cheeks, the way they stood a little too close together, like they were each other's only shelter. His expression hardened. "This isn't a shelter. You can't just hang around here. People are complaining." Noah's hand found Eli's, their fingers intertwined, an automatic gesture born from 6 months of surviving together on the street. "Don't let them separate us," Eli thought. "Whatever happens, we stay together." "We're leaving," Eli said quietly. "We didn't mean to. Just go. Now." As they turned to leave, Eli's foot caught on something. He looked down and saw a black leather wallet lying on the floor, partially hidden beneath a decorative planter. Without thinking, he bent down and picked it up. It was heavy, expensive-looking, with smooth leather that felt foreign in his rough, cold hands. Noah leaned in. "What is it?" Eli opened the wallet carefully. Inside were credit cards, business cards, identification, and a thick stack of $20 bills. His breath caught. There had to be hundreds, no, thousands of dollars in there. For a moment the world seemed to stop. Eli's mind raced through possibilities. This money could feed us for months. We could get a real coat. We could sleep somewhere warm. He thought of the shelters they'd run from, the terror of being separated, the nights under the bridge when the cold cut through their clothes like knives. But then he remembered his grandmother's voice, soft and steady from before she got sick. "Boys," she used to say, "the world's gonna try to tell you you're worth less than others. Don't you ever believe it. You prove them wrong by how you act, not by what you have." Eli closed the wallet. "We have to return it." Noah looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Eli, that's enough money to." "I know." Eli's voice was barely above a whisper. "But it's not ours." They walked back toward the security guard, who was now talking into his radio. When he saw them approaching, his hand moved instinctively toward his belt. "Sir," Eli said, holding out the wallet. "I found this on the floor. Someone lost it." The guard stared at them, then at the wallet, suspicion etched into every line of his face. He snatched it from Eli's hand and flipped it open. His eyebrows rose. "Where did you really get this?" "I told you. I found it on the floor right over." "You expect me to believe 2 homeless kids just happened to find a wallet full of cash and decided to return it?" The guard's voice dripped with disbelief. "More likely you stole it from someone's pocket." Eli felt something crack inside his chest. We did the right thing, he thought desperately. Why doesn't that matter? We didn't steal anything, Noah said, his voice shaking. My brother found it and we brought it back. The guard grabbed his radio. I need backup at the main entrance. Possible theft situation. From the second floor, Nathaniel Crowford had been watching the entire scene unfold. He'd come to Riverside Mall that afternoon to meet with the property developer who was pitching a new commercial complex. The meeting had ended early, and Nathaniel found himself standing by the railing, looking down at the crowds below. He'd built his fortune from nothing. Well, almost nothing. An orphan who'd been shuffled through the foster care system, he'd clawed his way up through scholarships, brutal work hours, and an unwavering refusal to stay down when life knocked him over. Now, at 52, he was worth more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. He owned properties across 6 states, employed thousands, and had his name on buildings. But lately, something had felt hollow. He'd stand in his empty house at night, surrounded by expensive furniture and original artwork, and feel absolutely nothing. When he saw the 2 boys pressed against the toy store window, something stirred in him. He recognized that look, the careful way they stayed small and quiet, trying not to draw attention. He'd worn that same expression once, in a different lifetime. Then he watched the taller boy pick up something from the floor, a wallet. My wallet, Nathaniel realized, his hand automatically going to his empty pocket. He must have dropped it while taking out his phone. He leaned forward, curious about what would happen next. The boy opened the wallet. Nathaniel saw the moment the child registered what was inside, the slight widening of eyes, the sharp intake of breath. From this distance, Nathaniel couldn't hear what they were saying to each other, but he could read their body language, the internal struggle, the temptation. Take it, a cynical part of Nathaniel's mind whispered. Everyone takes what they can get. That's how the world works. But then the boy closed the wallet and walked straight toward the security guard. Nathaniel felt something shift in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. It felt almost like shame, mixed with a strange kind of hope. These children, who clearly had nothing, were choosing integrity over survival. When the guard grabbed the wallet and immediately accused the boys of theft, Nathaniel was already moving toward the escalator. He descended quickly, his expensive shoes clicking on the marble floor. People naturally moved out of his way, something about the way he carried himself, the cut of his suit, the air of authority that came from years of commanding boardrooms. Excuse me, Nathaniel said, his voice cutting through the guard's radio chatter. Is there a problem here? The guard turned ready to dismiss whoever was interrupting, but stopped short when he saw Nathaniel. Even if he didn't know who Nathaniel Crowford was, the guard could tell this was someone important. Sir, these 2 kids, I caught them with a stolen wallet. I'm waiting for, that wallet, Nathaniel said calmly, is mine. The guard blinked. Yours, yes. I dropped it about 20 minutes ago. Nathaniel looked at Eli and Noah. Did you find it? Eli nodded slowly, unsure what was happening. Yes sir, it was on the floor by the plants. Nathaniel held out his hand, and the guard reluctantly gave him the wallet. Nathaniel opened it, making a show of checking the contents. Everything was there, his driver's license, his credit cards, his business cards identifying him as CEO of Crowford Enterprises, and yes, just over $2,000 in cash. But there was something else, a small piece of paper, folded between the $20 bills. Nathaniel carefully pulled it out and unfolded it. The handwriting was childish, the letters uneven and scratched out in pencil on a piece of notebook paper. It read, Grandma says returning lost things brings good luck. Nathaniel stared at the note for a long moment, his throat felt tight. These boys, hungry, homeless, desperate, had not only returned his wallet intact, but had left a note explaining why. As if they needed to justify their honesty to themselves. As if they needed a reminder not to take what wasn't theirs. When was the last time someone in his circles had shown that kind of character? When was the last time he had? He looked up at the 2 boys. They stood close together, holding hands, their eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. They expected punishment. They expected the worst because that's what life had taught them. Something broke open inside Nathaniel's carefully constructed walls. Officer, he said to the guard, his voice steady but cold, these children did nothing wrong. In fact, they demonstrated more integrity in 5 minutes than most adults show in a lifetime. They found my wallet with over $2,000 inside, and immediately sought to return it. That's not theft, that's heroism. The guard shifted uncomfortably. They looked, poor, Nathaniel finished. And you assumed that meant they were criminals. The guard's face reddened. Around them a small crowd had gathered, phones out, recording. Nathaniel was aware of it, but didn't care. He turned to Eli and Noah, and then did something that made several onlookers gasp. He knelt down on the marble floor, bringing himself to eye level with the boys. "What are your names?" he asked, gently. Eli, the taller boy said. "This is my brother Noah." Eli and Noah, those are strong names. Nathaniel pulled out his wallet and took out 5 $20 bills. "This is a reward for your honesty. Please take it." Eli stared at the money like it might disappear if he blinked. "Sir, we were just doing what's right." "I know, that's exactly why you deserve it." Slowly Eli reached out and took the money. His hand trembled. "Thank you." Nathaniel stood up, but his eyes never left the boys. His mind was working, pieces clicking into place. "Where are your parents?" The boys exchanged a glance. Noah's eyes filled with tears he was trying hard to hold back. "Our grandma raised us," Eli said quietly. "She passed away 6 months ago. Diabetes. We've been on our own since then." 6 months. These children, barely 8 years old, had been surviving on the streets for 6 months. "Child services?" Nathaniel asked. "We ran away," Noah blurted out. 3 times, they kept trying to split us up. They said nobody wants twins, that we'd be easier to place separately. His voice cracked. "But we're brothers, we're supposed to stay together." Nathaniel felt an old wound tear open in his chest, a wound he'd buried under decades of success and carefully maintained emotional distance. He knew exactly what they were talking about. He knew the terror of being torn from the only family you had left. But he also knew he couldn't just take them home. There were laws, procedures. He could get them arrested, or worse, get the boys taken away permanently. "Listen to me," Nathaniel said, his voice thick with emotion he couldn't quite control. "I'm going to help you, but I need to do this the right way. Can you stay here for a little while? I'm going to make some calls." Eli and Noah nodded, though their eyes showed they didn't quite believe any adult would actually help. Nathaniel pulled out his phone and stepped away. First he called his executive assistant, Clara Jensen. "Clara, I need you to contact Child Protective Services immediately. Tell them I have 2 homeless minors who need emergency placement, and I'm requesting to be considered as a temporary guardian. Get me the name of whoever's on duty today." "Sir, are you?" "Just do it, Clara. Please." Next he called his attorney, Victor Hale. "Victor, I need you at Riverside Mall immediately. It's about foster care law. I'm trying to get custody of 2 children. Nathaniel, you can't just— I know I can't just take them. That's why I'm calling you. Get here now." He turned back to the boys and the security guard, who was now thoroughly confused about what was happening. "Officer, I need you to stay here with these boys until Child Protective Services arrives. Make sure they're safe, make sure they're warm. Get them something to eat from the food court, put it on my account." The guard, perhaps embarrassed by his earlier behavior, nodded quickly. "Yes sir, of course." Nathaniel knelt down again. "I'm going to fix this, I promise you. But I have to do it legally, which means there are going to be some adults who come talk to you. Just tell them the truth. Tell them what happened. Can you do that? Are you really going to help us?" Eli asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm going to try my hardest, and I don't give up easily." 45 minutes later, a woman in her 50s arrived, wearing a gray pantsuit and carrying a worn leather briefcase. Her face was set in an expression of professional concern. Behind her came Victor, looking crisp in his suit despite the rushed journey. "Mr. Crowford," the woman said. "I'm Evelyn Morris from Child Protective Services. I understand you found 2 minors in need of placement." "These are Eli and Noah Carter," Nathaniel said. "They've been living on the streets for 6 months after their grandmother passed away. They've run from foster placement 3 times because the system kept trying to separate them." Evelyn's expression tightened. "I'll need to verify that information." "Of course. But while you're verifying, I want to formally request consideration as their temporary guardian." Evelyn looked him up and down. "Mr. Crowford, I appreciate your concern, but temporary guardianship requires background checks, home studies, and I'm aware of the requirements." Victor interjected smoothly. My client is prepared to undergo all necessary evaluations. In the meantime, we're requesting that the boys be placed in a safe location, preferably a hotel room that Mr. Crowford will pay for, under CPS supervision, rather than in a shelter where they might run again. Evelyn hesitated. That's unusual. So is finding two 8-year-olds who return a wallet with $2,000 in it, Nathaniel said. These boys have shown more character than most adults I know. I'm not going to let them disappear back into a system that's already failed them. After a long moment, Evelyn nodded. Fine. I'll arrange for supervised placement at a hotel tonight. But Mr. Crowford, don't get your hopes up. Temporary guardianship isn't easy to obtain, especially for a single man with no child care experience. I understand, but I'm going to try anyway. The next 3 weeks were a blur of paperwork, interviews and bureaucratic obstacles. Nathaniel underwent a criminal background check, spotless, a financial evaluation, more than adequate, home safety inspection. His penthouse was deemed suitable, though he had to install additional safety features and create a proper bedroom space for the children. The boys remained in supervised hotel placement, with Nathaniel allowed to visit for 2 hours each afternoon. He brought them books, toys and take-out food, and slowly, painfully, began to learn how to talk to children who'd been hurt by every adult they'd ever trusted. On the 4th day, Eli finally asked the question Nathaniel had been dreading. Why are you doing this? The boy's voice was quiet, careful. You don't even know us. Nathaniel had been preparing answers, logical, sensible explanations about civic duty and wanting to help. But sitting in that sterile hotel room, looking at 2 boys who'd learned not to trust promises, he found himself telling the truth instead. When I was 9 years old, Nathaniel said slowly, my parents died in a car accident. I had a little brother named Daniel. He was 7. The state put us in foster care and promised it was temporary, that they'd keep us together until they found a family to adopt both of us. Eli and Noah leaned forward, listening intently. But they didn't keep us together. They said it was easier to place us separately. They said it was just for a little while. That turned into months, then years. I never saw Daniel again. Never, Noah whispered. Never. I looked for him my whole life, spent thousands of dollars on private investigators, but the system had swallowed him up, and I couldn't find him. Nathaniel's voice cracked. So when I saw you two, holding hands, terrified of being separated, I saw me and Daniel. And I thought maybe I can't fix what happened to us, but I can stop it from happening to you. There was a long silence. Then Eli said, very quietly, our dad's name was Daniel too. Nathaniel's heart skipped a beat. Was it? Daniel Crowford. He died when we were babies. Construction accident. The room seemed to tilt. Nathaniel's hands started shaking. What was your father's middle name? James, I think. Grandma mentioned it once. Daniel James. The same name. The same age, roughly. Could it be? Excuse me, Nathaniel said, standing abruptly. I need to make a phone call. He stepped into the hallway, his mind racing. He called Clara. I need you to pull every piece of information you can find on Daniel James Crowford. Birth records, death certificate, everything. The father of Eli and Noah Carter. Sir, are you? Just do it. Now, this is urgent. When he went back into the room, the boys were watching him with wide eyes. Is something wrong? Eli asked. Nathaniel sat down heavily. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. What are the odds? He thought. Daniel is a common name. Crowford is less common, but it's possible. This could be nothing. Just a coincidence. But something in his gut told him it wasn't. The next day, Clara called him with preliminary information. I've requested full records from the hospital where the boys were born, but it'll take a few days. However, I did find a death certificate for Daniel James Crowford. Died 8 years ago in a construction accident. Age 34. Nathaniel did the math quickly. His brother Daniel would be 41 now. 8 years ago, he would have been 34. Send me everything you get, Nathaniel said, his voice tight. That afternoon, during his visit with the boys, he brought out his phone and pulled up an old photograph, one of the few he had from before the accident. Him and Daniel, arms around each other, grinning at the camera. Can I show you something? He asked the boys. They nodded. He held out his phone. This is me when I was 9, and this is my brother Daniel when he was 7. Eli stared at the photo, his face going pale. "That looks like Noah." It did. The resemblance was striking. The same eyes, the same shape of the face, even the same way of holding his mouth. "Do you have any pictures of your father?" Nathaniel asked, his voice barely steady. Eli shook his head. "Grandma had some, but they got lost when she died. We didn't have anywhere to keep things." That night, Nathaniel couldn't eat, couldn't work, could barely breathe. He sat in his study, staring at that old photograph, seeing his brother's face in Noah's features. "Is it possible?" he thought. "After 30 years of searching, did I find Daniel's children by pure chance? Or is this fate? The universe's way of bringing family back together?" He thought about the note in his wallet. "Grandma says returning lost things brings good luck. Maybe Rosa was right," he thought. "Maybe returning what was lost does bring good fortune. Just not in the way anyone expected." 2 days later, the hospital records arrived. Clara brought them to his office personally, her face carefully neutral. "Sir, you should read these alone." Nathaniel's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Inside were birth certificates for Eli and Noah, father listed as Daniel James Crowford, medical records, and a death certificate. Daniel James Crowford, born in the same city as Nathaniel, the same year as his brother Daniel. Foster care records, showing placement in the same county where Nathaniel and Daniel had been separated. And then a photograph that had been scanned from hospital records. A young man holding 2 newborn babies, his face radiant with joy and grief. A man who looked exactly like Nathaniel's childhood photos of Daniel, just grown up. Nathaniel pressed his hand to his mouth, a sound escaping that was half sob, half laugh. "I found you," he thought. "Daniel, I finally found you. I'm 30 years too late, but I found you." He kept reading. There was more. A letter that had been in Daniel's personal effects, marked to be delivered to next of kin if possible. With shaking hands, Nathaniel opened it. "Nathaniel, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I've looked for you for years, but the system keeps saying there's no record. Maybe you changed your name. Maybe something happened. I hope you're okay, wherever you are. I'm writing this in case something happens to me. Construction work is dangerous, and I have kids now, twin boys, Eli and Noah. They're 6 months old and perfect. Their mom Isabella died having them. Her mom Rosa is helping me raise them, but she's not well. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone too, and I need you to know something. I never forgot you, not once. When they split us up, they told me you'd come back for me. I waited every day. Later, when I understood what really happened, I realized you'd been looking for me too. We were both searching and never connecting. That's the saddest thing I can think of. If you find my boys, and I hope to God you do, tell them about us. Tell them family is about showing up, even when it's hard. I never stopped loving you, big brother." Nathaniel folded the letter carefully, pressed it to his chest, and for the first time in 30 years, allowed himself to truly grieve. He wept for his parents, for his brother, for all the lost years. He wept for the children Daniel had left behind, for the grandmother who'd tried to find him and failed. He wept for the cruel coincidence that had kept 2 brothers searching for each other their entire lives, always missing each other by inches. But underneath the grief was something else. Determination. "I couldn't save Daniel," he thought, "but I can save his sons. I can give them the family he wanted for them. I can make sure they never feel abandoned the way we did." The next afternoon, when he arrived at the hotel for his daily visit, he brought the letter and the photograph. "Boys," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something important." They sat on the bed, watching him with wary eyes. "Your father, Daniel Crowford, was my brother. My little brother, who I was separated from when we were kids. I spent my whole life looking for him, and he spent his whole life looking for me. We never found each other, but somehow, by chance or fate, or whatever you want to call it, you found me." Eli's eyes widened. "You're really our uncle." "I am. Your dad left this letter for me, hoping I'd find you someday. He wanted me to take care of you." He handed them the photograph. Both boys stared at the image of their father holding them as babies. "He looks happy," Noah whispered. He loved you both more than anything. And he would want you to know that you're not alone. You have family, you have me." "But the lady Ms. Morris," she said. "It's hard for you to get custody," Eli said, his voice small. "What if they don't let us stay together anyway?" Nathaniel knelt down in front of them. Then I'll fight harder. I'll fight every single day until we win. Your father and I were torn apart by the system. I won't let the same thing happen to you. Do you understand? I'm not giving up. Even if I'm terrified, I'm not good enough, he thought. Even if I have no idea what I'm doing. Even if I fail at this 100 times, I'm not walking away. For the first time since they'd met, both boys smiled. Real smiles. The kind that reached their eyes. Thank you, Eli said simply. That night, Nathaniel met with Victor to go over their legal strategy. The DNA test confirms what we already know, Victor said. You're their biological uncle. That gives us strong grounds for guardianship. But Evelyn Morris is going to argue that blood relation alone doesn't make you suitable. What do I need to do? Prove you can provide stability, that you understand the responsibility, that you're not just doing this out of guilt or obligation. Victor looked at him seriously. Nathaniel, why are you doing this? And I need the real answer, not the one you'd give a judge. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. Because for 30 years I've been alone. I built an empire, made more money than I could ever spend, but I was alone. These boys are my second chance. A chance to have family again. To give them what Daniel and I never got. To make sure they know they're wanted. He looked at Victor, and because I'm terrified that if I don't do this I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I just tried harder. Victor nodded slowly. That's the truth, the judge needs to hear. 3 weeks after finding the wallet, Nathaniel stood before Judge Michael Roberts for the emergency custody hearing. Evelyn Morris presented her case, concerns about Nathaniel's work schedule, his lack of experience, the need for professional oversight. But when it was Nathaniel's turn to speak, he told the truth. All of it, about losing Daniel, about the 30-year search, about the letter his brother had written, about the boy's courage and integrity. Your Honor, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion churning inside him, I don't know if I'll be a good father. I don't know if I can give these boys everything they need, but I know I'll try with everything I have. Because they're my brother's sons. Because they're family. And because choosing to show up, even when you're scared, even when you don't know what you're doing, that's what family means. The judge was quiet for a long moment, looking at the documents, at Nathaniel, at the two boys sitting in the gallery holding hands. Finally he spoke. Mr. Crawford, I'm granting you temporary guardianship for 6 months, pending full evaluation, but understand, this is a trial period. If those boys suffer, if they're neglected, if you fail them, I will not hesitate to remove them. Am I clear? Crystal clear, Your Honor. Then let's make this official. When the gavel came down, Eli and Noah rushed forward, and Nathaniel wrapped his arms around them, feeling something settle in his chest that had been empty for 3 decades. We made it, Daniel, he thought. Your boys are safe, they're home. The first night in Nathaniel's apartment was harder than he'd expected. He'd prepared everything, had Clara help him set up a bedroom with twin beds, new clothes in the dressers, books on the shelves. He'd stocked the kitchen with food he hoped 8-year-olds would eat. He'd researched bedtime routines and morning schedules. But nothing had prepared him for the reality of 2 traumatized children trying to adjust to safety after 6 months of survival. Eli and Noah sat on the couch, close together, their eyes darting around the penthouse like they were memorizing escape routes. They ate the dinner Nathaniel ordered, pasta from the Italian place downstairs, in silence, taking small bites, as if afraid the food might disappear. You can eat as much as you want, Nathaniel said gently. There's plenty more. But they still ate carefully, methodically, the way people eat when they've known real hunger. After dinner, Nathaniel showed them to their room. This is yours, both of you. You can change anything you want, different sheets, different posters, whatever makes you comfortable. Eli looked at the 2 beds, separated by a nightstand. Can we push them together? Of course, whatever you need. They spent 10 minutes rearranging furniture until the beds were side by side, close enough that they could hold hands in the dark. Better? Nathaniel asked. Both boys nodded. Okay, well it's been a long day. Why don't you get ready for bed? Bathroom's right through there. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. He started to leave, but Noah's voice stopped him. Uncle Nathaniel. Yeah? Will you stay? Just until we fall asleep. Something in Nathaniel's chest cracked open. Of course, He sat in the chair by the door while the boys changed into their new pajamas and climbed into the beds they'd pushed together. They lay facing each other, hands clasped in the narrow space between the mattresses. Nathaniel sat in the darkness, listening to them breathe, and wondered what his brother would think of this moment. Just as he thought they'd fallen asleep, Eli spoke into the darkness. "Uncle Nathaniel, what if they change their mind? What if they come and take us away?" And there it was, the fear Nathaniel had known was coming. The trauma that wouldn't heal overnight. "They won't," he said firmly. "Judge Roberts gave me custody. You're legally mine now. Nobody can take you away unless I do something wrong. And I'm not going to." "But what if, Eli? Look at me." Nathaniel moved closer so the boy could see his face in the dim light from the hallway. "I spent 30 years looking for your father. 30 years wishing I could have my family back. Do you really think I'd let anyone take you away now that I've found you?" "No," Eli whispered. "I guess not." "Then trust that. Trust me, you're safe here." "Okay," Noah said quietly. "We'll try. That's all I ask." But an hour later Nathaniel was woken by a sound from the boys' room. He rushed in to find Noah sitting bolt upright in bed, his face pale, shaking. "What happened?" Nathaniel asked. "He had a nightmare," Eli said, his arm around his brother. "He gets them sometimes. About them splitting us up." Noah was crying silently, the kind of crying that comes from trying not to make noise, not to be a burden. Nathaniel sat on the edge of the bed. "Noah, it's okay. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to be scared. That doesn't make you weak. I dreamed that lady came back with police, that they took Eli and I couldn't reach him. That's not going to happen. I promise you." But even as he said it, Nathaniel wondered how many promises these boys had heard before. Promises that got broken. Reassurances that turned out to be lies. "How do I prove this is different?" he thought. "How do I make them believe they're safe when everything in their experience has taught them not to trust?" He didn't have the answer, so instead he did the only thing he could think of. "Do you want me to stay in here tonight? I can sleep in the chair. That way if you wake up you'll see I'm right here." Both boys nodded eagerly. So Nathaniel grabbed a blanket and settled into the chair by the window, and he stayed there all night, dozing uncomfortably, but waking every time one of the boys stirred. In the morning, when pale sunlight filtered through the curtains, he found both Eli and Noah awake, watching him. "You stayed," Eli said. Something like wonder in his voice. "I said I would. Adults don't usually keep promises, not to us." Nathaniel felt that like a punch to the gut. "Then I guess I'll just have to keep proving I'm different." The next few weeks fell into a routine. Nathaniel enrolled the boys in a private school with a good counseling program. He hired a child psychologist to help them process their trauma. He rearranged his work schedule, taking meetings from home when possible, leaving the office by 5 p.m. every day, something he'd never done in his entire career. His board of directors was baffled. His business partners were concerned, but Nathaniel didn't care. "I have priorities now," he told Clara when she hesitantly brought up the complaints. "If they can't understand that, they can find a new CEO." The boys slowly began to settle. They started to believe that food would be there tomorrow, that the apartment was really theirs, that Nathaniel wasn't going anywhere. But the trauma didn't disappear. It lurked in unexpected moments. One afternoon, 3 weeks after they'd moved in, there was a knock at the door, just a package delivery. But when Nathaniel opened the door, both boys bolted from the living room and hid in their bedroom closet. He found them there, huddled together in the dark, Eli's arms wrapped protectively around Noah. "Hey," Nathaniel said softly, kneeling outside the closet. "It's okay. It was just a delivery guy. Nobody's here to take you away." "We're sorry," Eli said, his voice muffled. "We know we're being stupid." "You're not being stupid. You're being exactly what anyone would be after what you've been through. It's okay to be scared. But I need you to believe something every time that door opens and it's not someone coming to take you away. That's proof that you're safe here. Does that make sense?" Slowly the boys emerged from the closet. "Can we practice?" Noah asked quietly. "Practice what?" "Someone knocking on the door, and it being okay." Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, we can practice." So they did. Nathaniel knocked on the door, opened it, showed them it was just him. Then Clara came by and knocked and they practiced opening it together and seeing a friendly face. Then Victor stopped by with legal documents and knocked and again it was okay. By the 10th knock, both boys could hear the sound without flinching. "See," Nathaniel said, "most knocks are just knocks, not everything is scary." "Thank you," Eli said, "for being patient with us." "You don't have to thank me, I'm your uncle, this is what family does." But late that night, lying in bed, Nathaniel wondered if he was doing enough. If he was doing anything right at all. What if Victor was right, he thought. What if blood relation isn't enough? What if these boys need more than I can give them? What if I'm failing them without even realizing it? He pulled out his phone and texted the child psychologist, Dr. Sarah Martinez, who'd been working with the boys. "Am I doing this right? How do I know if I'm helping or hurting?" Her response came 5 minutes later. "There is no right with trauma. There's only showing up, being consistent, and letting them learn to trust again. You're doing fine, keep going, Nathaniel thought. Even when I don't know what I'm doing. Just keep showing up. The next morning, Evelyn Morris arrived for her monthly check-in. Nathaniel had been dreading these visits, waiting for her to find something wrong, some reason to take the boys away. But when she arrived, she didn't look hostile, she looked curious. "How are things going?" she asked, settling into a chair in the living room while the boys were at school. "We're adjusting," Nathaniel said carefully. "It's not always easy, but we're figuring it out." "I can see that. I've been reviewing the reports from their therapist, their school, the home visits. The boys are thriving." Nathaniel blinked. "They are. Their teacher says they're engaged in class, making friends. Dr. Martinez says they're making excellent progress in therapy. And they've gained weight, they're sleeping better, they're exhibiting fewer trauma responses." Evelyn looked at him. "Whatever you're doing, Mr. Crowford, it's working." For the first time in weeks, Nathaniel felt like he could breathe. "Thank you, that means more than you know." Evelyn stood to leave, then paused. "I owe you an apology. When we first met, I made assumptions about your ability to care for these children. I was wrong. You've proven to be exactly what they needed. I'm just doing what their father would have wanted." "You're doing more than that. You're giving them a chance to be children again. That's no small thing." After she left, Nathaniel sat on the couch and allowed himself a moment of relief. They were making it. Against all odds, they were actually making it work. When the boys came home from school that afternoon, he had a surprise for them. "How would you feel about officially changing your last name?" he asked. "You'd still be Carter, your mother's name, but adding Crowford, so you'd be Eli Carter Crowford and Noah Carter Crowford, keeping both families as part of who you are." The boys looked at each other, that silent twin communication. "We'd like that," Eli said softly. "It feels right, like we're really part of the family." "You've always been part of the family. This just makes it official." That night, as Nathaniel tucked them into bed, a ritual they developed over the past weeks, Noah said something that made Nathaniel's heart stop. "Uncle Nathaniel, can we call you Dad?" Nathaniel felt tears prick his eyes. "Are you sure? I don't want you to feel like you have to." "We're sure," Eli said. "You're not our first dad, but you're our dad now. If that's okay, it's more than okay," Nathaniel said, his voice breaking. "It would be an honor." "Okay then. Good night, Dad." "Good night, Dad." Noah echoed. "Good night, boys," Nathaniel managed. "I love you both. We love you too." After they fell asleep, Nathaniel sat in the living room, Daniel's letter in his hands, and spoke to his brother for the first time in 30 years. "I'm trying, Daniel," he whispered. "I'm scared I'm not good enough, that I'll mess this up somehow. But your boys, our boys, they're incredible. You raised them well in the time you had, and I promise I'll do everything I can to honor that. To give them the life you wanted for them." He looked at the photo of Daniel holding the newborn twins. "I wish you were here. I wish we'd found each other in time. But maybe this is how it was meant to be. Maybe this is the universe's way of bringing us back together, through them." Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. But inside this apartment, 3 people who'd been lost, had finally found their way home. 5 months into their new life together, Nathaniel received a call that would change everything again. It was Dr. Patricia Chen, from St. Mary's Hospital. "Mr. Crowford, I apologize for the delay, but we've been conducting a complete archive review, following some irregularities we discovered in our record system. We found additional items from Daniel Crowford's estate that weren't transferred initially. Can you come by to collect them?" Nathaniel brought the boys with him. They deserved to be part of discovering anything related to their father. At the hospital, Dr. Chen led them to a small office where a cardboard box sat on the desk. This was in deep storage, misfiled under a different name. We only found it during our audit. Inside were photo albums chronicling the boys' first 8 years, birthday parties, first steps, kindergarten graduations. Rosa had documented everything with love and care. "Look," Noah whispered, pointing at a photo of them blowing out candles on a birthday cake. "I remember this. I was 5. Grandma made chocolate cake." "She made chocolate cake every year," Eli added, his voice thick, "because we both loved it." They turned pages slowly, reverently, piecing together memories they'd thought were lost forever. Daniel appeared in many of the photos, pushing them on swings, teaching them to ride bikes, reading bedtime stories. A father who'd loved them fiercely in the short time he had. But at the bottom of the box was something that made Nathaniel's blood run cold. A manila folder marked CPS Case File Carter Twins. He opened it carefully. Inside were documents from when Rosa had died, the initial intake reports, the foster placement requests, and a note that made his hands shake. It was a memo from Evelyn Morris to her supervisor. "Recommend splitting twins, easier placement separately. Family search inconclusive. Father's records show no living relatives." But stapled to the back was another document, a form that should have been filled out but wasn't. A comprehensive family search form that would have required searching for relatives on both the mother's and father's sides. The boxes were empty, the signatures missing. Someone had simply checked NA and moved on. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. They didn't even try. "What?" Eli asked, looking over his shoulder. "When your grandmother died, they were supposed to search for all possible family members before putting you in foster care. They didn't do it. If they had, they would have found me immediately. Your father's last name was Crowford, the same as mine. A simple database search would have connected us." He looked at Dr. Chen. "Can I have copies of all of these documents?" "Of course. I've already made a set for you." "I thought you might need them." She hesitated. "Mr. Crowford, I want you to know, this isn't how the system is supposed to work. What happened to these boys was a failure at every level." "I know," Nathaniel said quietly, "and I'm going to make sure it never happens again." In the car on the way home, Nathaniel was silent, his mind working. The boys had been failed at every level. Failed by a system that was supposed to protect them. Failed by people who were supposed to care. The boys sat in the back seat, clutching the photo albums like treasures. They were happy to have these pieces of their past back. But Nathaniel was thinking about the future, about all the other children who might be failed the same way. "No more," he thought. "This ends now." That evening, after the boys were in bed, he called Victor. "I want to sue, not for money. I want systemic change. I want to expose what happened so it never happens to another family." "That's going to be a fight," Victor warned. "The county will defend itself vigorously. They have entire legal departments dedicated to protecting the system. Let them try. I have documentation of their failures. I have 2 children who spent 6 months homeless because someone couldn't be bothered to fill out a form. I have a dead brother who specifically asked for me to be found, and a system that didn't even look." "When do you want to start?" "Tomorrow." "Nathaniel," Victor said carefully, "you need to understand what you're getting into. This won't be quick. It could take months, even years. The media will be relentless. Every aspect of your life will be scrutinized. Are you prepared for that?" Nathaniel thought about Eli and Noah, sleeping peacefully in the next room. About Daniel's letter, about 30 years of searching, and 6 months the boys had spent on the streets. "I've never been more prepared for anything in my life," he said. The lawsuit was filed the next morning. Within hours, it made headlines. Billionaire exposes foster care failures. After nephews spent months homeless, the media descended like locusts. News crews parked outside Nathaniel's building. Reporters called at all hours. The story had everything: wealth, poverty, lost family, systemic injustice, and 2 children, whose simple act of honesty had exposed it all. The video from the mall, the one showing Eli returning the wallet and being accused of theft, went viral again. This time though, people watched it knowing the full story, knowing that these boys had been failed by every system designed to protect them. Public outrage was immediate and fierce. Social media exploded with stories from other families who'd been separated unnecessarily, other children who'd been lost in the system, other relatives who'd searched in vain for family members, swallowed by bureaucratic failures. The county's initial response was defensive. A spokesperson issued a statement: Child Protective Services operates under strict guidelines designed to ensure child safety. Every placement decision is made with the best interests of the child in mind. But the documents Nathaniel had obtained told a different story. And he wasn't the only one coming forward now. Within a week, 3 other families contacted Victor's office with similar stories. A grandfather who'd been trying for 2 years to get custody of his grandchildren. An aunt who didn't know her nephew existed until she saw the news story. An older sister who turned 18 and immediately started searching for her younger siblings, only to be stonewalled by bureaucracy. The lawsuit expanded. What had started as one man fighting for his nephews became a class action representing dozens of families torn apart by systemic failures. The county fought back hard. They brought in expert witnesses who testified about the challenges of foster care, the limited resources, the impossible caseloads. They argued that isolated mistakes didn't constitute systemic failure. But then Victor put Eli and Noah on the stand. The boys, now 9 years old, sat in the witness box, looking small and nervous. The judge, a different one this time, experienced in class action cases, looked at them kindly. Eli, the judge said gently, can you tell me why you ran away from foster care? Eli glanced at Nathaniel, who nodded encouragingly. Because they wanted to split us up, me and Noah. They said it would be easier to find families for us if we were separate. And how did that make you feel? Scared. Noah's my brother, we're supposed to stay together. Grandma always said we had to take care of each other. What happened when you ran away? We lived under a bridge. It was cold and scary, but it was better than being alone. Being apart from Noah would be like cutting me in half. The courtroom was silent. The judge turned to Noah. Is that how you felt too? Noah nodded. Eli's my best friend. He's my brother. When we were on the street, at least we had each other. If they'd split us up, I would have had nobody. Did anyone try to find your family, your relatives? No, sir. Not that we know of. We didn't even know we had an uncle until he found us. The judge looked at the county's lawyers. You're telling me that in 6 months no one thought to do a basic family search? The county's lead attorney stood. Your Honor, with respect, the caseworker followed the protocols that were in place at the time. The protocols that left 2 8-year-old children homeless for 6 months. The judge's voice was sharp. Those protocols, the attorney had no good answer. Months of hearings followed. Depositions, expert testimonies, mountains of documentation. The county fought every step of the way, arguing that isolated mistakes didn't constitute systemic failure. But with each hearing, more evidence emerged. Other families separated unnecessarily, other children lost in bureaucratic cracks, other relatives who tried to help and been turned away. The public pressure grew until the county had no choice but to negotiate. Nathaniel gave one press conference, early in the process, standing on the courthouse steps with Victor beside him, and the boys at his side. This isn't about my family alone, he said, his voice carrying across the crowd of reporters. This is about every child failed by a system that values procedure over people. My nephews spent 6 months sleeping under bridges because someone didn't do a basic family search. How many other children are lost in the same cracks? How many families are being torn apart when they could be reunited? A reporter shouted, "What do you want to see change?" Everything.
mandatory comprehensive family searches before any foster placement, a national database to track separated siblings, better funding for caseworkers so they're not drowning in paperwork, independent oversight to ensure protocols are actually followed, and most importantly, a fundamental shift in how we think about these children, not as problems to be managed, but as human beings deserving of love and stability. What about Evelyn Morris? Should she be fired? Nathaniel paused. He'd thought about this carefully. Miss Morris made mistakes, but she was working in a broken system with impossible caseloads and inadequate support. After 25 years in the field, she was tired of watching good kids get lost in bad systems. The problem isn't one person, it's the structure itself. We need reform, not scapegoats. That answer surprised everyone, including Evelyn herself. 2 days later, she requested a meeting with Nathaniel. They met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Evelyn looked older than she had 5 months ago, tired in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. "I've been reviewing my own cases from the past year. You were right. I stopped seeing children and started seeing files. I became part of the problem." "You were trying to do your job in an impossible situation," Nathaniel said. "That's generous of you, but it doesn't excuse what happened to Eli and Noah. If I'd done that family search properly, they would never have been homeless. They would have been with you from the beginning." She took a breath. "I've requested a meeting with the county administrator. I'm going to recommend a complete overhaul of our family search protocols, and I'm going to testify in your lawsuit." Nathaniel blinked. "You're going to testify against your own department?" "I'm going to testify for the children. That's what I should have been doing all along." She met his eyes. "I got into this work because I wanted to help kids. Somewhere along the way I forgot that. You reminded me. Those boys reminded me." "Thank you," Nathaniel said quietly. "That takes courage." "No. What takes courage is what you've done. Fighting the entire system to protect 2 children who weren't even yours yet. That's courage." "They were always mine," Nathaniel said. "I just didn't know it yet." Evelyn's testimony proved crucial. As a 25-year veteran of child protective services, her insider perspective carried weight that no outside expert could match. She detailed the systemic problems: underfunding, understaffing, outdated databases, protocols that prioritized speed over thoroughness. "We're taught to process cases quickly," she testified. "The faster we can place children, the better our metrics look. But that speed comes at a cost. Family searches that should take weeks are done in days. Forms that should be carefully completed are glossed over, and children who could be with loving relatives end up in foster care, or worse." "What would you recommend to fix these problems?" Victor asked during direct examination. "Mandatory waiting periods before any placement, to allow time for thorough family searches, a centralized national database that connects foster care records across state lines, independent auditors who review cases to ensure protocols are followed, and most importantly, double the caseworker staff so that each worker has a manageable caseload." Would these changes have made a difference for Eli and Noah Carter? Absolutely. A proper family search would have identified Nathaniel Crowford within days. Those boys never should have been homeless. They never should have been separated. They should have been with their uncle from the moment their grandmother passed away. The county's cross-examination tried to paint Evelyn as a disgruntled employee, but it didn't work. She remained calm, professional, and devastatingly credible. After 11 months of litigation, the county finally agreed to settle. The terms were comprehensive: mandatory 14-day waiting period before any foster placement, during which time a thorough family search must be conducted. Creation of a centralized state database linking foster care records, with plans to expand nationwide. Independent oversight board with authority to audit placements and investigate complaints. 50% increase in child protective services funding, specifically for hiring additional caseworkers. New training protocols emphasizing family preservation and reunification. Sibling registry to track separated brothers and sisters and facilitate reunification efforts. Annual public reporting on placement statistics, family searches and reunification rates. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't everything Nathaniel had hoped for, but it was real change that would help real children. "We're not done,"
Nathaniel told the press after the settlement was announced. "This is just the beginning. I'm establishing the Daniel Crowford Foundation, dedicated to keeping families together and helping children in foster care. We'll fund additional family searches, provide legal assistance to relatives seeking custody, and advocate for continued reform at the state and national level." He looked at Eli and Noah standing beside him. "These boys taught me that doing the right thing matters, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And the right thing is making sure no other family has to go through what we went through." 6 months after the settlement, 1 year after finding the wallet, the formal adoption was finalized. Judge Roberts, who'd granted the initial custody, had asked to preside over the adoption proceedings. Nathaniel stood before the judge with Eli and Noah on either side of him, their hands in his. The courtroom was packed with people who'd been part of their journey: Clara, Victor, Dr. Martinez, even Evelyn Morris, who'd become an unlikely ally and friend. "Mr. Crowford," Judge Roberts said, "when you first came before this court, I told you that if you failed these boys, I would personally see to it that you never got near them again." Nathaniel's heart skipped, but the judge was smiling. "I'm pleased to say that monitoring has shown quite the opposite. You've proven to be exactly the father these children needed. You've provided stability, love, and the chance for them to simply be children again." He looked at Eli and Noah. "Boys, you're very lucky to have him." "We know," they said in unison, "and Mr. Crowford, you're lucky to have them. This is what the system is supposed to do, bring families together, not tear them apart." He picked up his pen. "It gives me great pleasure to grant this petition for adoption. Eli Carter Crowford and Noah Carter Crowford, you are now officially the sons of Nathaniel Crowford. Congratulations to all three of you." When he signed the papers, the courtroom erupted in applause. Nathaniel pulled both boys into a tight hug, tears streaming down his face. "We did it," he whispered. "We're officially a family." "We were always a family," Eli said. "Now we just have the papers to prove it." Outside the courthouse, reporters waited, but this time, Nathaniel had a different message. "Today isn't about lawsuits or reforms or systemic failures," he said, his arms around his sons. "Today is about family, about 2 boys who taught me that integrity matters more than wealth, about second chances, and choosing to show up for the people you love." He looked down at Eli and Noah. "These boys returned a wallet when they had nothing. They chose each other over safety. That's what we should be celebrating. That kind of courage, that kind of character." A reporter called out, "What's next for you?" Nathaniel smiled. "We're going home. We're going to have dinner together. Maybe watch a movie, be a family, because after everything we've been through, that's what matters most." But before they left, another reporter shouted, "The Daniel Crowford Foundation announced today that it's funding family searches for over 200 children currently in foster care. Can you comment?" Nathaniel nodded. "My brother Daniel wanted his children to have family, to know they were loved and wanted. Every child deserves that. Every single one. So yes, the foundation is working to reunite families. We've hired a team of investigators and family search specialists. We're working with child advocates across the country, and we won't stop until every child who has family somewhere knows they have people looking for them." "What would your brother think of all this?" a reporter asked. Nathaniel's throat tightened. "I think he'd be proud. I hope he'd be proud." That evening in their apartment, the three of them sat at the dinner table, Chinese takeout this time, because Nathaniel had discovered that his cooking skills hadn't improved much beyond pasta. "Dad," Noah said, the name came naturally now, as easy as breathing. "Yeah, in class today, we had to write about a hero, someone who changed our life." "Oh, who did you write about?" "You," both boys said in unison. Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. "I'm not a hero, I just did what anyone should do." "But most people don't," Eli said quietly. "Most people saw us and walked past, or they saw us and called us trouble. You saw us and saw family." Noah pulled out a piece of paper, his essay from school. "Can I read it to you?" "Of course." Noah cleared his throat and began. "My hero is my dad, Nathaniel Crowford. He wasn't always my dad. For a long time we didn't even know he existed. But when we met him, he changed everything. A lot of people think being a hero means being strong or brave or fighting bad guys. But I think being a hero means showing up. It means keeping promises. It means choosing to love someone even when it's hard. My dad could have walked away. We were just 2 homeless kids he didn't know.
But he didn't walk away, he fought for us, he learned how to be a dad even though he'd never done it before. That's why he's my hero. Not because he's rich or important, but because he showed up, and he's still showing up. Every single day. By the time Noah finished, Nathaniel was crying, not trying to hide it, not ashamed of it, just letting the tears fall. Eli and Noah jumped up and wrapped their arms around him. "We love you, Dad," Eli said. "I love you both so much," Nathaniel managed. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." Later that night, after the boys were asleep, Nathaniel stood in front of the framed letter from Daniel, reading it for the 100th time. "If you find my boys, and I hope to God you do, tell them about us. Tell them family is about showing up, even when it's hard." "I'm showing up, Daniel," Nathaniel whispered. "Every day. For the rest of my life, I promise you that." His phone buzzed with a text from Clara. "Foundation helped reunite another family today. Grandfather in Texas found his 3 grandchildren, who've been in foster care for 2 years. Thought you'd want to know." Nathaniel smiled through his tears. That was 4 families this month. 4 sets of children, who wouldn't have to wonder if anyone was looking for them. He sent back, "That's what we're here for. Keep going." He looked at the photo on his desk, taken that afternoon after the adoption was finalized. 3 smiling faces, a family that had found each other against impossible odds. Then he checked his calendar. Tomorrow was Saturday. He'd promised the boys they could go to the Science Museum. Sunday they had plans to visit the park, where Daniel used to take them when they were little. The boys had found it in one of Rose's photo albums, and wanted to see it again. Normal family things. The kind of ordinary moments that had once seemed impossible. Nathaniel walked to the boys' room and looked in on them one last time. They were curled up in their beds, still pushed together, probably always would be, peaceful in a way they'd never been when he first met them. "Good night, Eli." "Good night, Noah," he whispered. "I love you both." And then so quietly the boys couldn't hear, "Thank you, Daniel, for trusting me with them, for believing I'd find them. I promise I won't let you down." He turned off the light and headed to his own room. Finally at peace with ghosts that had haunted him for 30 years. The wallet had been worth $2,000. The note inside had led him to family he didn't know existed. The boys' honesty had exposed a broken system and sparked real change, but more than any of that, it had brought 3 lost souls home to each other. And that, Nathaniel thought as he drifted off to sleep, was worth more than all the money in the world. Family always, together.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.